Hey everyone, my name is Mike Anderson. I'm with the SCHEELS social media team.
Ben Fleischak with the product development side.
And today we're going to talk about virtual scouting for turkeys. So we're a couple weeks away from the season right now. So what we're doing is we're trying to find areas where the birds are going to be roosting, potential areas that we're going to be able to set up on them. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the computer and we're just going to check out some areas. So these are going to be places that we haven't hunted before. We're going to try and touch a few different states, so then everyone around the country can kind of get an idea on places that we're looking for and terrain that's applicable to your area. So let's get started.
All right, so again, kind of echoing what Mike said, some of these spots we have not been to. They may be familiar states just because where we live or where we have lived. However, in most cases, turkey is turkey. When you start taking a look at some of the eastern part of the states where there's heavy woods, whether they're pine, whether they're hardwoods, whatever it might be, even up in northern Minnesota where there's a lot of popular trees, or even going to the plains, the western part of the states, or west of the Mississippi, I should say, Missouri. As we go through this, these are generalized. Obviously, on Google Maps, we're not going to be able to see what's public, what's not public, what the boundaries are. Highly encourage you to take a look at getting some sort of a hunting app, like Onyx is a great system. I've used it for several years now. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah, I use Onyx too, along with a couple of different apps, and they're just super valuable for that. So you know where your property lines, you know where you can safely hunt. You can figure out how to ask permission if you need to do stuff like that.
Absolutely. And so as we go through this again, heads up, apologize for picking on your property. Not the intent. We don't have the property lines up here. And again, this is a generalized idea. And so this is, Mike and I are sitting here, okay, hey, we want to go to North Dakota to hunt, or we want to go to Wyoming, or we want to go to Kentucky, whatever it might be. This is the preseason stuff you're looking for. And so you're going to find your core area of the permission you have, whether it's public or not, and then you're going to start branching out. The reason why is that the winter roost versus where they're going to shoot them in the springtime is typically not the exact same. Some of the early seasons, like your archery seasons that kick off before shotguns, it could be the case you still could be hunting that winter roost. If not, more times than not, we're hunting the branching. So let's go ahead and dive in right here. We're going to pick on southeast Minnesota here. And we're going to be on, looks like the Mississippi right now. This right here is some canyon lands, just by roughly looking at it right now. So when I first start zooming in, the first thing I'm looking for is, as you can see the wooded fingers. In general, we may not know exactly what type of trees they are. I've seen turkeys roost in trees that are 18 feet tall, and I've seen turkeys roost in trees that are 60 foot tall. In general, they're going to want a specific type of tree, but depending on the topography and depending on the area, there's certain areas in Canyonlands in Nebraska that literally there's no trees, and so any tree is a good tree. Versus you're looking at some of the hardwood forests or pine tree forests, there's going to be maybe some differences in the trees and what they like. So as we pick on this area, it looks like Tamarack Creek wildlife area, so we might have just gotten lucky and may have helped somebody do some preseason scouting right now. So to just say on this computer screen, what we're looking at is the area we can hunt in this generalized area. So we've got a road that's going through. I would assume, not knowing exactly, but the green is going to be some of the bottom areas, and the trees are going to be some of the hillier areas or mountainous areas. As I look at this, one thing I'm looking for is I'm always looking for residential areas or housing of some sort. I want to zoom in on some of this stuff. The reason why is I'm looking for food and I'm looking for water. So obviously I got some water here, I got some grain bins. I'm thinking the winter roost again is where I'm going to really focus on my time on. So I just want to see what we've got, see if there's any livestock. Livestock always require food and open water. I can also see down in here, we got some ag land that's been trimmed or cut, tilled up. This could be someone's hunting property. This could be food plots. This could actually even be that public piece, food plots on that public piece. So you're gonna know you got some food areas. As I keep on going, I can see some terracing right here. So I know that's hilled. I also know that's farmed. Not knowing exactly what kind of crop that is, I would assume it's corn, but I could be mistaken in that area. So I know I've got food, I've got water, I've absolutely got good enough trees in here. Just basically looking at this, knowing that the clear cuts don't necessarily happen as much anymore, so these trees are more than likely mature. You got some good ridges, some good hills. Looks like right here you might have a 2-track road that's going through this person's property. It's great strutting area, it's great travel paths for them. Most wild animals enjoy the path of least resistance. It's not true with every animal. However, you will see that if you have a fenced-in area, like a cattle pasture or something, and there's a gate open, you're gonna see a lot of foot traffic going through that gate that's open versus underneath the fence.
Yeah, this looks like a lot of good turkey habitat you're looking at right now.
really
But just
does.
to like kind of go back to the very start. So when you dove into this right away, basically you were just kind of getting a lay of the land,
100%,
right? Figuring
yep.
out what's going on there. Need the three essentials. You need your food, your water, your cover. If that area you're looking at has all three of those looking good on the map, then we can start diving into, okay, where are the turkeys actually going to be? So
Yep.
like step one, figure out the lay of the land, where roads are, all of that stuff. Step two, are we looking for like roost areas or what's going on there?
Yes and no. I mean, you really need to have boots on the ground to really dive in. You know, again, and it's so hard doing the virtual scouting because turkeys adapt to their environment. You know, I've seen it again, kind of going back to some of the craziest places you never would think you'd see a turkey. You see a turkey. In general, more and more today, you're going to see a lot of urban stuff, urban deer hunting, urban turkey, waterfowl. I mean, they're notorious too to always roost in town somewhere on open body of water, but then they go out somewhere else, right? So knowing that we got
and the good thing about the urban stuff is it's just less pressure and less predators. You know,
Yep.
you're going to have a much lower coyote density or things like that when you're near town.
in general, yeah. All right, so now I've lost my spot, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to just zoom in into a different area. Going back to what Mike was talking about, you know, on this, I'm definitely looking for the key ingredients: food, water, shelter, trees. Another key important thing is also nesting cover for the hens. And that can be in various different areas. I've seen them roost in roadside ditches before because there's no habitat. The more habitat you can find, the more areas you can see that have not been hayed, like this right here. This has been hayed field. Is going to be important. Now, depending on the haying practices, they may not always hay during the nesting season, which is great. Got this little kill plot back here, it looks like, on someone's property. Food plot back in there. That could be nesting area. There's a lot of good nesting area in this area. So the one thing we cannot account for is what the turkey population is in this generalized area. You know, we want to assume that there's so many turkeys anyways that they're obviously going to be successful here. I just got back from a trip down to Missouri for a work trip, and we did not see a single turkey, but everything we drove by was turkey. But there's no turkeys. Why is that? It could be population, it could be predators, it could be nesting conditions. It could have been the weather patterns that just killed a bunch of the birds, where they had a horrible hatch the last several years.
I just had a conversation with my parents the other day too. They see turkeys all the time in the spring, but they really haven't seen anything yet on their property. What we're thinking is, you know, there is a difference between your winter roost areas and the places where they're going to be when they're doing breeding and things like that. They tend to disperse as the weather gets warmer, and you know, just if you're scouting well early into the season and you're not seeing birds, don't be afraid just yet. They might be moving into that area. But if you can get on birds somewhere in the surrounding area, that's a really good sign.
Absolutely. And just knowing, I mean, typically there's always landowners that don't allow hunting, which is a good thing. I know it's kind of hard to say that when we're all trying to get permission, but you need those core areas that have refuges, you know, sort of pseudo refuges, that they're safe, they're not getting a lot of pressure, they're able to reproduce, they're able to, you know, stay within healthy body weight condition throughout the wintertime months. This area is just screaming turkey.
Yeah, it looks really good from this map. So let's just pick a certain spot, and then Ben, if you want to go through areas where you think would be potential roost sites, just what a person can be looking for if their topography looks like this from Google Maps.
Absolutely. So again, it's tough to really tell. There's some mapping softwares out there. I think Scout and Hunt's one of them. They actually show you the type of trees and when they were last clear cut. That would be a good one to use, but this one right here I love because, so say we're hunting on this person's property. Looks like there's two people right here, a couple different houses. Right back in here, I guarantee there's birds, just because of, they love the residential side. You've got some really good open areas. You've got all these different areas back in here that could be nesting cover. I don't see any cattle trails or anything like that. That's another thing you can see visually on the maps. But as I'm looking, typically turkeys like to fly down, so they can get up on top of one of these hills and then just fly straight across eye level and get into a tree. They will fly straight up. I've seen that. I'm sure a lot of people have seen that. But when they come out of the trees, they always like to go down. So there's a property I hunt in the eastern part of the state of Nebraska, and it's kind of in this big river valley type deal. It's an old drainage. Anyways, it's super tall banks. Well, the turkeys like to get up on top and then just fly across and get into the trees. Then when they come out in the morning, they go down. And so in this situation, I would imagine that if there's birds around here and they're roosting on this person's property, if this is a public piece, I'd be looking 100% on these top edges right here.
Yeah, I mean, because
Right up
it's a
through
little
this
bit tough to tell from the map, but that looks like those are some of the biggest trees in the area, and biggest trees are good ones to key on. Obviously, they can roost in some crazy trees, but generally, you're looking for some of the biggest ones in the area with a nice flyway that they can run up to.
Yep. And even this guy, I mean, there's a lot of times that we've got turkeys that will actually roost right on the edge of the field. Other properties, they're actually into 50, 80, 100 yards into the trees. On this one, I mean, this just screams turkey to me. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's something where you want to, like, you know, if you have permission from the landowner, you know, get on the side of the field and just watch it. You know, see if you can find where they're roosting. See if you can hear them. Do, you know, like an owl call or a coyote call or something like that. So you can get them to fire off. But so let's say if you want to scroll back into that corner there. So say we've determined that they're roosting right on the corner of the field here. How would you set up, or what's a spot that you would set up in the morning when you know you have that roost site dialed?
You know, going in blind, I always like to be in high visibility areas, knowing that the birds are right here. Typically, they'll fly down, they'll do some scratches, some pecking, and then they start, you know, doing the chasing of each other, the toms and the jakes do. I like to be on points where it's high visibility, because these birds, say they're roosting in this tree grove right here, they may fly down and go to the left, they may fly down and go to the right, they may mill around a little bit in the field, and they jump right back into the trees. You know, so you never want to set up too close to the roost, but without putting boots in the ground, which is very important, you need to be putting boots in the ground. Like if I was going to hunt this and, you know, we got not this weekend, the following weekend's turkey opener for North Dakota, I'd be out there looking for tracks. I want to see where they're going, because on this point right here, if there's no activity, no sign, why would I set up there? Now, knowing that I can pull turkeys that way, but I want to go where the sign is. You know, it's the trapping 101, you always set on sign. It's the same thing. I'm always going to try to set up on sign. So going in blind, it's a little bit tough, but knowing that the landlord's like, oh yeah, I always see him in the field every single morning.
So is there a certain time of the day you like to go in and be looking for this sign, so you know you're not like boogering them off a roost or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure, not first thing in the morning. I like to scout first thing in the morning in the glasses, you know, because again, like 7 days in a row, these birds did exactly this. Well, day 8, when you go to hunt, they zagged. Even though 7 days in a row, they were doing whatever else. It's very important that you still get boots. So first thing in the morning, you're listening, hearing the gobbles, because they're going to be gobbling off. You kind of get that pinpoint, you know, you use your mapping software on your phone. If not, if you have a laptop with you, some maps, you can kind of look at that. Once the turkeys kind of disperse and they're starting to do their own thing, I like to jump out there, because turkeys will make loops, you know. They're creatures of habit as well. So say they fly off this point, they come into this little area right here, they mill around, they take this little open area through the trees, they come down here into this guy's field, and then they eventually loop back through here and they come through. So they're gonna make a full circle right back to where they roost at, you know, typically. Now, given the time of the year and, you know, the time of the season as well, and what the pressures look like, they will move their roost a little bit, but in general, they're still going to come back.
Yeah, they're definitely creatures of habit, and you're absolutely right on that loop part. And you know, your loop size will vary too. I know that I've hunted an area where their loop brings them multiple days. You know, like I've had cameras out where a turkey will be on my camera one day and then it won't show up until 3 days later, and it's like every 3 days, like clockwork.
Yeah, and they'll bounce around too from the fields. I mean, if there's a dominant tom with a couple hens, and then there's a subdominant tom or a couple toms or a couple jakes or whatever, you know, the one bird may have the hens over here, but then on this point right here, you have 3 or 4 other huntable birds.
Yeah,
so they're just watching.
What we're doing right now, great to get started, great starting point. Then you move to your boots on the ground. So we've done a pretty good job covering this area. So let's try like a different type of terrain. Let's maybe do something flatter with less trees to help the viewer in areas like that understand what we're looking at.
All right, here's Missouri. We'll go to something Kansas, Nebraska area. A lot of customers out there. Let's just pick on this area. I guess the corners of Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa. Kind of scroll in. Again, apologize for picking on anybody's properties. Okay, we're gonna use this guy right here. So we got some wooded fingers.
Okay, and so why did you automatically key into that area?
Trees.
Trees,
Water, creeks, rivers. From above, you can really see how it kind of sticks out like that. South of Shenandoah, Iowa. I mean, we can go anywhere. I mean, here's the Iowa-Missouri border. I've hunted turkeys over in this area. Let's pick on this area. So we got fingers. Again, this is broad, open area. One thing, again, just going in, we're looking for food cover, roosting trees, nesting cover. Hens will travel several miles to go nest their eggs. So there's plenty of ag. This looks like a lot of pasture land too.
How about we target up here? That looks like a good area.
Looks like a public piece. No, it's not public. All right, so say this is the block we have to hunt. I'm gonna zoom out, and what I'm zooming out for, I'm looking for, again, houses, I'm looking for farms, I'm looking for water and food. So that way if it gets cold, and the water freezes up and the snow's on the ground and it's covering all the cropland, I'm gonna try to find something that's got livestock in the area. So this obviously looks really good. This whole area's got some nice ponds. And when the turkeys start dispersing, I mean, there's properties that, you know, I'm 4 or 5 miles away from the winter roost. And it's just a timing game of when the toms actually end up on that property. So this area, and even down where I'm at in southeast North Dakota, the craziest places to find turkeys, you know, you're just finding a small farmyard. The person's got a hobby farm and they've got, you know, five animals for livestock, but they've got all the winter roost turkeys. So here's a nice little farm. Got some grain bins. There could be some grain spillage, but nothing's just screaming out to me. You got a nice little waterway the turkeys can follow. It's also got some nesting cover. You got some tree patches right here. Trees don't look ideal. Looks like more of the junk trees.
But then again, if you got an area that's got a bunch of junk trees and 3 or 4 really good trees, then you have a great idea on a potential roosting site.
Absolutely. And in general, this is kind of a good example here too. These little fingers, they kind of separate. I'm sure the reason why this is not farmed is that there's actually a ditch in there or something, or a drainage ditch of some sort, or a wetland area. Typically they like to blow those out, but I would not assume that this would be a roosting area right here. So if you wanted to set up on this property, say this is the roosting area, and then you got this creek right here. This creek probably could have some good roosting trees as well. Some of the stuff I've seen in Kansas, I know this is Iowa here, is that they got steep banks. And so there's actually a big drop off from the farm edge on both sides of this actually into the watershed. And so some of those are really good too, because again, they can actually fly right from the field into the trees, and they can fly down, get some scratching, get some water. There's some lake birds we hunt too. That's what they do. I mean, every single morning they fly down, they go right to the water's edge, you know, and that's where you're seeing all your turkey sign. But in this one, I've seen turkeys roost and stuff like this, but in general, this would probably be a better roosting area. This guy's a little bit thicker. This could be a good roosting area, and obviously any type of watershed like this. And they don't need the best tree, but they do prefer.
They just need the best in the area.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go to a hunt situation on that. Say if you want to scroll down back to there.
Yep.
Say they've started roosting, you know, somewhere in this bigger block of timber. Where are you thinking you would set up in the morning on them?
Man, it's tough. Going in blind, I would still probably pick right here. And this is where, and again, there's so many different philosophies out there on turkey hunting, what's right, what's wrong, and what you should do, what you shouldn't do. For me personally, what I would personally be doing is that, and this is why I like to have multiple decoys with me, is I like to give them a visual. because it's so wide open and they can see it from so far away. I want to give them something to key in on. So in this situation, I'd most likely be tucked into this tree or into this tree because I know I can walk in from the road right here. Let's look at this. Yep, so you can see kind of where the farmer's been driving through. It's a little bit higher ground that I can get it cut across there. I'm not gonna risk blowing out birds. I might venture in. You're always looking for ways you can get there because there's times
Yeah,
when
I
you
mean,
go in.
in this situation, if you know if they're roosting in the bigger block of timber, what you can do is you can take that creek bed and then you can follow that tree. So like you're never walking across the field, you're never silhouetted, and you can get fairly close to them.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, if you don't have a situation like that, you know, get to a spot where you know that the birds can hear you, but you know that they haven't seen you yet. Because if they see you walk across the field, the gig's up.
Yep. So yeah, so knowing that the birds would be roosting in here, and if you can be quiet, obviously this is not a place I would take a brand new hunter or a kid. But if I was just personally hunting or hunting with one of my buddies, I'd probably be set up on one of these two sides of this little entranceway and have a decoy spread right here. One hen or two hens, maybe a jake, maybe a strutter. More than likely just a couple hens and a couple hens on this side too. And then a jake or a tom, the male right in front of us. So I want them to key in on the hens, and then once they get sight, you know, and you're hoping that's going to be a dominant bird that's going to come right in and want to fight.
Yeah, and then if you have this situation and you are trying to hunt with a kid, I think it'd be a great idea to, you know, put some glass on that, see what the birds are doing, and then set up a ground blind in advance so you can sneak in there, and then, you know, you can get that kid into a blind. You can restrict any, you know, the turkeys aren't seeing all that movement and stuff. So you just think about different ways to hunt it.
Absolutely. Yep. That pre-setup, in my opinion, is very important. That all this pre-work, I mean, nothing beats boots on the ground. So if you have a 3-day hunt and you're leaving on a Thursday and you get to your location Thursday night, Friday morning of your hunt, in my opinion, whenever I've done it, I always use that first day as a 100% scouting mission. If I have an opportunity to kill a bird, I'm going to go out there and try to kill a bird. If not, that first day is just fact finding. I want to find out what the area has. I'm putting boots on the ground. I'm listening. I'm out there at the first light, before light, listening to where they're gobbling. At times, I'm a very aggressive turkey hunter, meaning I'm going to go take the fight to them. Other times, I know if I'm just patient enough, because I can see all the scratching, I can see the signs. Like there's no confusion when you see an area that turkey flock has been. I mean, everything's just tore up.
Scouting is just so important. You know, we're working on the virtual stuff here. Once you have a good idea, lay of the land, if time allows, move to boots on the ground. And then from there, then you can develop your best hunting plan, try and execute. You know, if it doesn't work, then, you know, go back to your virtual scouting, see nearby areas, and just kind of replicate the same thing.
Yep. And even picking on a river system here, this is West Omaha. So we got the Platte River and the Elkhorn River right here. Looks like there's an island between the two. So even in this area, knowing when you have a big water source, I mean, that's one thing that I'm always, no matter what I'm looking for, I'm always looking for a river system. Turkeys love river systems. The reason why is they got food, they got water. The reason why they got food is typically this farm all the way up to the river's edge, right? Typically, that's the only place you got trees. If you're hunting in the ag states. Because trees and ag fields don't necessarily get along. So this right here is a big floodplain. Got some waters. Not seeing a whole lot of trees. Could just also be the time of the year, the Google image. Yep, here's a bunch of trees too. Got some farms, some houses at least. The nice thing too about hunting some of these urban birds or these rural neighborhoods is that there's probably more landowners or property owners that do not want the turkeys around that actually do want them around. The reason why is they're tearing everything up, eating their garden, eating the flowers, tearing everything up. When they start scratching and digging, I mean, I would love to own property with a bunch of turkeys on it just to have them around, to listen to them, watch them. But in general, most of them don't really care for them.
So we've done a pretty good job covering a place with a bunch of trees, now ones that have, you know, river systems and more sparse trees. Let's cover one area that's, you know, a little more jagged and rocky. I'm thinking like edge of the Badlands or like rolling hills of Nebraska or something like that.
Yep. We can even just pick on South Dakota here. Oh, we'll go up to the Sand Hill, or the Badlands, sorry. So the Badlands area, kind of all this area into Montana, going up into North Dakota. We'll just pick on the 3 corners here. So in this area where there's not many trees and there is some ag land, I mean, you can see there is a river system down here. But as you're going into it, the trees are very sporadic. Here's some trees. If not, they could just be scrub brush. They may not even be trees, considering it's the Badlands. You can see some hay bales, so you know it's been hayed. But there's also the areas that have not been hayed. That's still good nesting habitat. You got some sort of row crop, most likely oats, barley, wheat, millet, something like that. So the thing I'm going to be looking for now is I'm looking for some sort of a feed yard for the cattle. And a lot of the desolate areas where there's not many trees or rolling hills or anything else like that, where it's just rough, nasty country, for example. Rough, nasty country. Doesn't show the topography lines, but this stuff is brutal out here. Got water source, so I'm looking for a farm at this point right now. Something that tells me they got cattle. They got some oil wells out here. We definitely picked a desolate area. What else? We got some down here.
Yeah, I think going up was your best bet. Probably
Yep.
right around that area.
So zooming in, obviously you can immediately tell, that they've got livestock of some sort. It looks like there's a riding pen for horses. Up here, we got some yards, farmyard. We got watershed here. Got a big hay field. Definitely cattle country. So as I'm going through this and what I'm looking for is that they're going to want some of this green grass because the green grass can have bugs, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to eat the grass, they're going to eat the hay, the alfalfa, but they're also going to start trying to get some of that protein into them. We've got some windbreaks right here. So if I was hunting this property, this landowner's property, assuming that the winter flock is still hanging out around in here, you know, they could potentially even be roosting in this windbreak right here because it could be the best available trees they have, could be in their front yard. So I'm going to look at the flat land here. So I can see all the ag. There's another farmyard over here. What they'll do is they'll bounce from this farmyard to this farmyard to this farmyard, back to this farmyard, spend a week here, spend a couple days here, go back up here. So they're just going to be bouncing around. But knowing that we have flat land right here-ish, flat land, and we got crop, is more than likely I'm going to be looking for something off the road so there's no safety issues, no safety concerns. But it could even be along this windbreak, or even if the landowner's okay, I'd be looking at this point. Again, I'm always looking for points because it gives you a broader range. You know, and if you got boots on the ground out here and be like, well, this is a bad idea because this is just one big lowland. Well, you got to flex a little bit. Then I got to go a little bit up here. I got to go a little bit over here.
And the other good thing about points is it's probably going to help you with your entry and exit routes too, because you're going to
100%.
have some sort of cover
Yep.
to shade you.
Yep. Going in at night, I'm not too concerned. Like I said, I mean, I've accidentally walked right underneath birds and still killed that bird later on. Mm-hmm. But setting up.
But yeah, it becomes a lot more important if you're doing like midday setups.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So now we're back to a different state. Apologize, everyone. So we are down. Oh, this is back in Minneapolis. Let's go up to Northwoods. Just gonna pick on any of these areas. We'll just pick on Brainerd area. So Brainerd area, this could be anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of different states that are gonna be in the situation where you got a lot of swampland, you got some rivers, you got some ag, you got some hunting cabin, hunting shacks. So I'm always looking for strutting areas too, as we go through, and especially when we start getting into some of this hardwood stuff. A block of forest is not gonna necessarily always be your friend, but this guy right here, looks like there might be a hunting shack. Yep, just a hunting shack, no paved road, just 2-track going in and out. This area right here that's been clear cut or grazed or whatever it might be is a fantastic strutting area. Now, some of the forest birds are some of the most challenging birds to hunt because they're always on high alert. You got apex predators, wolves, coyotes, bobcats, mountain lions, you name it, they've got out there. And so the deeper the woods, in my opinion, the harder they are to hunt. And so bringing them out into the wide open may not be the easiest thing. And so I'm going to look for these little 2-track trails. A walking trail, an open area. You got to be careful too, because looking at this might be swampland. The worst thing to do is get out there and find out that this whole area is all reed canary grass or cattails, and you're just like, oh man, that sucks. I would not set up in this area right here personally.
Yeah, that one's looking a little too swampy.
Yep, but as you get up in here, you start seeing that 2-track. Well, guess what? You can't drive through a swamp necessarily. And so it's going to be a little bit higher ground. And so again, the path of least resistance, these birds are going to be walking some of this. If not, they're going to hug the edges very slowly. I always like these pinch points, personally, where it brings them in tight. They got cover for safety. They're going to have a little bit more confidence. But also, if I need to call them in from a distance, they can get a visual representation. Hey, I see a decoy out there. I need to come in.
Perfect. Well, that was a ton of information. We covered a few different areas. Thanks to Keon.
Yep.
If you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments. Check us out at social media. And thanks for your time, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck.